Good morning, beautiful being. It is great to see you today. So welcome to the inside world, because the outside world is raining and a bit windy, and you know how that goes. So today is Technique Tuesday, right? Way for Technique Tuesday. And when I was just picking crystals, and I thought, well, what we are talking about is how to take your brain from something muddled like this, which by the way I love, to something else, and I'll show you that in a minute. So this is this lovely muddled smoky quartz celestial, and it's got tourmaline in it, which is a sort of blue-green variety. Good morning, Mike. And I love this thing. You know, I mean, really, it has actually got lovely shiny facets, but there's such a lot of inclusions in the stone that you just think it's kind of fugly, isn't funny and ugly. It's a little bit skeletal in places, you know. I don't know if you can see. See, there are gaps. It's a really interesting celestial. It's not all perfect and beautiful. Good morning, Julian. And sometimes our thoughts are like this. I sure had that yesterday. Sandy, hello. It's great to see you. Yesterday, I would say, was a hard day for me. It was. And I'm not even looking at what was going on the world stage or for any reasons, because I can tell you my own story about why it was hard. It was just hard. It was really hard inside my head. And I didn't really know what else was going on around the world, because I honestly choose to stay blissfully ignorant a lot of the time. Because, call me selfish, but I'm really focused on my own journey. Paul, it is lovely to see you. So, taking the brain, the mind, from this to this, right? And I'm going to show you the other one, with love. Sparkly. It's perfect because I've got the lights on up there today, because it's so dark, so we'll get to the sparkly one in a minute. But this has been on quite recently. This is quartz from China, not from Brazil, where a lot of quartz comes from. And I can see the rainbows in it, but I don't know if I can show you. There are rainbows in this corner. Let me see if I can catch the light on them. See that facet that's bright at the moment? There's rainbow colours in there, but you got to have the light in the right place. So you just have to imagine them. There's not an awful lot of water inside this rock, but when you can see it, it's very pretty. Very colourful. I'll just try again, just in case. Yeah, it's in there. They're in there somewhere. But yeah, it's a lovely quartz pyramid, and I enjoy showing it off. And taking your brain from scrambled to organised is a really good thing to do. And of course, it really helps if you have love in the picture. So this is bluestone. Bluestone is not a natural substance. It's created. And although I know this looks pretty black, it's actually a very dark blue. And it's got little pieces of something metallic in it which make it sparkle. And when it's under artificial light like this on a dull day, it's just perfect. So that's really, really nice. So, Technique Tuesday, right? And I wanted to talk about the inner critic, voices in our head, memories that keep talking to us 50 years later, all of that stuff. And this is, I'm going to put it somewhere it won't rock. Because I have this great peripheral vision. If there's something moving in my peripheral vision, it's extremely distracting, and I'm not going to do that today. So, I want to talk about the critical voices in our head and how you shut them up. And by extension, how you can take a really ugly state of mind and potentially improve it a little bit, or even, you know, really organise it. Good morning, Andrew! And good morning, beautiful beings. If I haven't greeted you, it's because I don't know who you are. Facebook doesn't tell me. It just depends if I know your little face. So it's lovely to have you joining. So, critical thoughts, what are they, right? The thoughts that come over and over again, or the memory that you have and then you think, oh, God. You know, and it's just as awful as it was at the time. Or worse, actually. I think these things get worse. You know, bad memories tend to get worse over time, because every time you fire it and wire it, it gets stronger. Heather, good morning! Every time you have the memory, that's another experience of it. You fire the memory, the neurotransmitters happen, the neuropeptides happen, you have the hormonal expression, you have the feelings, and then you've had another experience of that memory, and so it enriches the neural network and it gets bigger. And it is actually truth. There's some research that my inspiration, Joe Dispenza, cites, where people were doing research about the nature of long-term memory. And long-term memory, it turns out we make half of it up, literally. We make it up because you can't help it. Every time you remember something, it changes. Enough said. So, these voices in your head, right? What actually are they? And this was a revelation. I only heard this, when was it? No, it wasn't something I heard. It was something I read in Joe's first book, which, well, maybe it's back to front, Evolve Your Brain, right? And there's a lot of neuroscience in it, and I love the neuroscience because it's plugging in holes for me. And it's something that I didn't connect with the first time I read it. I'm reading it the second time now. And there's a thing that I talked about a lot where, you think a thought, you have the feeling, and if you do that for long enough because it's a really engaging thought, or it was a really traumatic experience or whatever, and you'd have to tell your friends and you have to tell the doctor if there was an injury or whatever, and you keep repeating it and repeating it, after a while your cells become adapted to the chemistry of that thought. And if you keep doing that, the cells, more than becoming adapted, they actually become addicted to the chemistry of that thought. It's like that they've modified their receptors. They have more receptors for those hormones, for those chemicals. And if you start to want to think and feel something else, they actually put up a fight and say, hang on a minute, my checkout operators on these receptors for these things are now twiddling their thumbs and saying, where's the thing that I'm used to processing, right? So that's one of the reasons why changing these long-term aspects about ourselves is so hard. So what happens when the receptors on the cells are saying, I want my fix, I want the chemistry of the familiar feeling, the familiar emotion, the familiar experience that's become so hardwired and hard-fired in your head, is you don't just have information coming from your brain to your body. Your body is equally capable of sending a signal to your brain and saying, give me some more of that chemistry. And how do you think it does that? It actually triggers the thought that gives the chemistry. And this was the thing that landed, and I can't find the little place in the book, or I'll read it to you. The voices in your head are actually your body sending the signal to your brain saying, I want that familiar thought and that familiar feeling to happen to help me feel the way that I'm used to feeling. Because the body wants to keep things the same. The body is into homeostasis. And homeostasis is whatever the body has got used to having be normal. So if stress is your normal, then when you try to move out of stress and get calmer, and it gets noisy in your head, that's what's going on. The body is saying, hang on a minute, you want me to go somewhere that's different and unfamiliar and unknown, and I'm going to fight you. Not because it's your enemy, but because it's just got used to something being normal, and then you're going to go for a new normal, and, normal is where it's at for the body. So we have to do a lot of work to help the body create a new normal. And it's exactly like the body wanting a smoke, Andrew. It's exactly the same mechanism, actually. When you've quit, and you're doing okay, and then you see somebody having a cigarette, and you think, oh, that'd be nice. Where do you think that thought comes from? It's your body wanting the fix. So what this is called, these thoughts that are just randomly there as the chatter in the background of our head, and it can be your critical parent or, whatever, or your own inner critic. And I've gone for criticism because I use that as the sort of thing for this post, because it's so common, the inner critic, the voice in your head, the one that's saying, you can't do that, and it didn't work last time, and God, it was in my face yesterday. Well, it was in my head, in my ears, and my everywhere yesterday. And I know what's going on. I was breaking out of an old mind, and I was losing my mind. And it was the mind I needed to lose, right? But it was hard. And so it's chaotic. And these are the default mode networks. That's actually the name for them. Zilla, it's great to see you. And this is just, these are the default mode networks. This is how we normally think, and we don't even notice that we think that way. We just don't. And it's so normal for us that, it's unconscious. And then when you start to want to feel a different way or think a different way, it's a struggle, because your body says, hang on, I want the normal thing, let me fire up the old thought. So that's how we get stuck in our normal ways of being, our normal ways of misery, our normal ways of anger, our normal ways of sickness. It's all the same. It really is all the same. Our normal ways of lack, our normal ways of frustration. The default mode networks, they're so default, they're so hardwired that, there's nothing wrong with it, Stella. It's just if you want to change it, okay? If we want to make a change to something that we don't like, the body fights us. And this is why. This is what I'm explaining. So we always have a choice about what we continue to say yes to. Nothing wrong with any of it, truly. So if you want to make a change, that's where the chaos that can be happening in your head and the critical voices that are just there in the background when you're trying to focus on your work and you're just thinking, I feel like shit, and that's what I want to be talking about. It's not about right or wrong. It's just about if there are noisy voices in your head and you want to calm them down. They're the default mode networks. They run all the time. They're automatic programs. It's like your Mac or your Windows operating system. They're just running in the background. And you're so used to them you don't even notice. But that's the voice in your head. It's your body literally being your mind. Arguing for your limitations and your difficulties and saying, I've got the good reason to be like this and don't you tell me I should change because, but actually the body is just saying, I want everything to stay the same. And when you as a conscious being make a choice that you want something to be different, that's what you're up against. Jen, lovely to see you. And again, don't make it your enemy, but just understand sometimes it can feel like an absolute wrestling match. God, I was on the mat yesterday. So, when that's all going on, the brain is firing incoherently. And by that, I mean all those different neural nets, those different chattering voices, each one of those voices is a different neural net going off in your brain. And if you can see, they can do functional scans of these things and actually take a picture of the electrical activity. And it is like a lightning storm in your brain. It's just chaos in there. And that's why it feels so bad. Because all of the different compartments in your brain, and these are all Joe's metaphors, and they work so well. It's like this massive orchestra inside your head, and it's not a symphony, it's a cacophony. Nobody is playing to the same beat. They're all in different keys. They're all fighting each other. Sanjia, good morning. Imagine an orchestra and the violins are hitting each other over the head with the violins and they're getting broken. And there's a wonderful Hoffman cartoon where the cellist is throwing the cello at the conductor that they hate. The cello's got a spike on the end. It's very funny. But you imagine it's a war inside your head because the different parts of your brain are not communicating well. And when your brain is incoherent, you're incoherent, and it feels horrible. And so that's what happens when the default mode networks are there, and then you're racked up with stress. When that is all amped up on stress hormones, you just want to fight somebody or run away or hide. That's how it works. So how do you shut that down? The brain is now running fast. It's running uncoordinated and incoherently, and it's very unpleasant. What do? And that was exactly what I was asking myself yesterday. And for me, because I've practiced this, I've gotten a little bit better at it. It was not easy. Yes, I didn't wave a magic wand and suddenly feel fantastic. I had a good night's rest and that really helped. And I did some work, but I refused to surrender to it and just give in and go, well, I'm having a shit day today. No, I kept choosing. But there was a moment when I thought, oh, God, I've got to break this, because it was dinner time, right? And if you're in that kind of mode, your digestion doesn't work. When you are in fight or flee or hide mode, it is not a time to eat or digest food. You can't assimilate food when you're in stress. And it was enough that I knew I was in that situation. It's dinner time. How am I going to assimilate my food if I continue to let this go on? And I've been working with it all day, okay? I've just been sitting there rolling over and letting it happen. So I was just thinking, body, and I remember I was just taking them up and I shut my eyes. and took a breath. And it's funny, I was thinking, how am I going to describe this? With my eyes shut, it's kind of like crossing your eyes. Because when you cross your eyes, you're removing your focus on any one thing, right? I knew I had to get my attention off the thing that my brain was obsessing about and saying, well, that's the reason why you feel the way. No, it wasn't. You know, we obsess about the things in our external environment, say, well, that's the reason why I feel awful. No, I was feeling awful because there was some really painful shit coming up in me, and my body was just going, oh, well, that's the reason, that's the reason, that's the reason. But no, this is stuff that's really from birth. Nobody's fault. Just what I agreed to and what I came in with. It was deeply challenging. And I thought, I've got to calm my body down because I need to eat. And so I shut my eyes, and it is kind of like crossing your eyes, you know, when you stop looking, and even in a breath, you know, I can just, and open my focus. Now, what do I mean by open my focus? I mean, I put my attention, my sensing, because if I shut my eyes, I'm not looking, I put my awareness into the space around me. And, you know, in that state, I think I was either in here or in the kitchen. It really just was into the sort of few meters of space around me, because that was all I could do. Because the more stressed we get, the more intently object and problem focused we become. Because that's what you need to do if there's a lion chasing you. Your only focus is on getting the hell away and protecting your body. But if you want to eat a meal and you're running away from a lion that actually isn't there, but your body and your brain are convincing you that it's there because of all that stuff I said before, well, that's not conducive to healing. It's not conducive to good conversations with people. It's not conducive to clarity. It's not conducive to digesting your food. So, again, I just shut my eyes and thought, I've got to put my attention in the space around me. Sometimes it really helps me to just take my hands and do this symmetrically, and any shape, it doesn't matter, but just make both hands go around in the space around me. It feels really nice. Because why? If I shut my eyes, and particularly the space behind me, how often do you reach behind yourself? And there's a thing about using both sides of the brain, that if you're using both sides of both hands, then you're firing both halves of the motor cortex at the same time, and you're using both sides of the brain, and it helps them work together, right? So just shut my eyes, put my awareness even just where my hands are, and reach all around me, and just become aware of the space. It really helps. Because as soon as I'm doing that, I'm not thinking about all of that that's going on in my head. And, you know, the me in my head is going to keep going for a while. And yeah, you can use a Reiki symbol. You can use whatever you like. But the point is, when you use the Reiki symbols around you, this is a great example, Sanchia. Because you have to create the picture of the Reiki symbol in your mind, which means you're taking your attention off that other thing. And also, the Reiki symbol means something to you. So beyond the symbol, you have a meaning attached to it. You have an intention attached to it. This is the definition of a placebo. You've got to have conditioning, which is based upon the past. Mora, hello, honey. So, based upon the past, you know what the Reiki symbol means to you, and you know what it's done for you in the past. So you have a conditioning that doing the Reiki symbol is going to help you in the future. You've got to have an expectation, which is it's going to help me, and you've got to have meaning. This symbol means blah. That is the definition of a placebo. Okay, big distraction. But when we take our attention off that thing, the scary whatever, and we put it on something else, and you open your awareness into space, that's going to allow you to do that. To actually take your attention off it and put your attention on, you know, off the bad thing and put your attention on something else, means you're going to get more coherent. So to open your space, open your awareness out into space, and it is a lot easier to do with your eyes closed, even if you just have to, you know, draw in a big slow breath and hold it for a bit, because that really helps. If you hold it, you're going to burn up some of the excess oxygen that you've got flying around in your body, which actually contributes to the stress response. Hold it for a little bit. And then as you let it out, imagine that your awareness goes out with your breath. I mean, we've done this before, but I've really got this focus on being in a state and trying to calm it down. You know, the thing of allowing the breath to flow into you and holding it for a while really does help. There's something about that which takes the sympathetic response of, ugh! But if you're not, doing that, and you just hold it up there and then really let it go gradually and slowly. And as you do, have the awareness of your awareness going out with the breath. And the picture I have is always the same in my head when I really think about this. You have an old house and all of and it's been shut up, and all the furniture is covered in those drapes. And it's like when the person grabs the top of the drape and lifts it up and takes it off the piece of furniture, like that in reverse. Ugh, and I just imagine it going out from all around me. And if you do this for longer, if you do this for several breaths or more breaths, or 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, helps with guidance, okay? I love the way Joe Dispenza guides me through this. Your awareness can become enormous. And what happens as you put your awareness into more space and you take your attention off all the things and people and places and circumstances and everything else, is all those neural nets that were firing up a storm and banging out a rhythm and everything else in your brain start to calm down, and then they turn off. And the default mode networks go to sleep. They just go away. The critical voice shuts up. I tell you, it's the hugest relief in the entire universe when I get to do this and I start off like that. I can actually turn off my inner critic. It is simple, it requires work, it requires practice, and it is so worth it every time I do it. The inner critic shuts up and my awareness grows, and then my brain starts to connect. All of those discombobulated, disconnected pieces of neurological hardware start to unify. And I start to feel like myself again. And I can't tell you how good that is. You really have to experience that for yourself. If you haven't done that, you haven't lived, let me tell you. It's the best. There's other things that I would say, that I've experienced in my meditations, I would say are equally the best, but that is one of the bestest that I get to have, is to make my brain whole. The chatter dies. And there is research that shows that when you shut down the default mode networks at the start of the day, they stay switched off for the rest of the day. Now, I can't say that happened yesterday, but I do know that over time, I have a lot less chatter in my brain. And when it comes up, I know what to do about it, and I'm better at dealing with it. So that's what I wanted to say as Technique Tuesday. And I will be back in 3.5 hours to give you an update on our beautiful Sangmarie Gomez, to tell you how he's doing in the Gambia. It's exciting and challenging times. I hope you'll join us. Big love. Until then, bye-bye.